Good evening YouTube, and welcome back to my garage. Today I have a 2010 Toyota Prius. It's making a violent knocking and shaking sound on early morning startup or first startup. Then it goes away and runs fine all day. So some of you probably wondering what the heck is going on here. Well, it's actually kind of a common issue on these third generation Priuses. Now, third generation Prius is any Prius that is built between 2010 to 2015. Most commonly what tends to happen is you get what they call a cylinder head gasket failure. What ends up happening during this failure is overnight when you shut the car off, you get a little bit of coolant that trickles into the combustion chamber. Now this little bit of coolant that trickles down into the combustion chamber and puddles up on top of the piston is then ignited first thing in the morning, and it causes your momentary misfire and rattle. Another issue it could potentially be your EGR sticking open and allowing inert gas to flow through your intake system. So I guess the question is, how do I figure out which one it is? It's actually pretty simple, and we're going to go over that today. So the best way to diagnose this head gasket failure is to actually pressurize the cooling system and then remove the spark plugs and snake something that they call a bore scope tool into the combustion chamber or spark plug hole. And then you can actually see the coolant leaking into the combustion chamber through the cylinder head gasket. Now, some of you might not have some of that high dollar equipment, so I'm going to show you a little trick to kind of understand how to figure out what is going on with your car. Now, realistically, one of the first steps you can do as a preliminary check is to open up the coolant reservoir cap, and if that thing hisses really loud, that's an indicator that you have combustion gases entering your cooling system. And I'm going to demonstrate what that exactly sounds like. So here's the reservoir that I'm talking about right here. When I loosen this cap and remove it, you're going to hear it. Now, little hissing is considered normal, but if it hisses like that, that is an indicator of combustion gases. So I guess the question now is, what do I do about it if I have a head gasket failure? Some of you may have been researching the option of using ceramic seal or bars leak or any of those other temporary alternatives to replacing the head gasket, but I will absolutely caution you on using those products. You can actually make your condition much worse when it comes to time to repair it. These products are known to restrict your heater cores and restrict your radiator. They're also known to cause premature failure of your thermostat and your actual water pump. The good news is, believe it or not, it's actually not that hard to replace a cylinder head gasket on these Toyota Priuses, especially if you choose to do it yourself. There are some safety precautions that I will show you in another video that need to be taken when actually performing these repairs. The reason that you need to actually perform these safety precautions is to prevent things like the engine cranking over on its own, which has been known to take people's fingers off who have been working on these cars and doing these repairs. Quite simply put, all it entails is disconnecting the negative battery cable. It's not rocket science, guys. So the next thing I'd like to explain is, why does it seem like when I take my car to a shop that the mechanic doesn't exactly know what's going on with my car, and why Some of you may have run into this situation in which a mechanic has said, you know, your engine's knocking, you actually need a new engine. Or if they have said that, hey, sounds like you have some noise coming from your transmission. The best way I can explain it to you is if you've ever done a actual clutch on a car with a manual transmission, you'll notice on those clutches that there are springs in the very center of the hub of that clutch disc. Now, the Toyota Prius has a very similar design in the engine coupler. Now, it's a CVT type transmission, and it's not a manual transmission, or actually it's an automatic transmission, just a different kind. But those springs are still there on this particular car. Now, when your engine misfires, you think of it as the crankshaft twisting, and then when it doesn't fire that cylinder, then it slows down really fast and then speeds up when the next cylinder fires, and so forth. Now, the end result is what you're hearing is that the springs violently rattling in that engine coupler, or dampener as we will call it. It freaks a lot of people out, but it's actually not that serious. You just have a cylinder misfire issue going on. That is it. So I guess the next question is, what head gasket set should I buy? Should I buy my gaskets from the dealer, or should I buy them from AutoZone or O'Reilly's? Well, there's a few options out there. By far, the dealer head gasket, I mean, it's very good quality parts. I've used them several times. The most important thing when doing this job is to ensure that you have all the other proper gaskets that you need. You're going to need certain O-rings that are behind the timing cover. You're going to need O-rings that actually lay underneath the valve cover. Those O-rings are for your oil control valves, which control your variable valve timing system in that Toyota Prius. And then there's another O-ring under the valve cover, which is to seal the port that transfers oil from the bottom of the engine to the camshaft oilers, which actually trickle down oil on top of the camshaft lobes. I've used a Felpro gasket set, and I've used a Victor Reinz set. I highly recommend the Victor Reinz head gasket set, because the last head gasket that I did using these aftermarket parts, it actually included every gasket needed, and every gasket that it actually came with is very similar to what you actually get from a dealer head gasket set. It's a lot cheaper than going with dealer parts, and in my opinion, the Victor Reinz gasket set is actually a pretty good quality set. Now, my experience with the Felpro gasket set was that the water pump gasket didn't fit. It did not come with the variable valve timing oil control valve gaskets that were needed. It didn't come with the oil pickup gaskets that sit behind the timing cover, and it also didn't come with the cam oiler gasket. And the other experience I had with the Felpro gasket was the timing chain tensioner gasket. What came as like a paper gasket, very poor quality. The gasket that is actually designed to be used on that timing chain tensioner gasket is metal. So definitely buy what you want. They usually try to sell that Felpro gasket set. It's a lot more readily available, but at the end of the day, you don't get everything you need for the job.